Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Policy Talks. I'm Dave Crouch, and this is the discussion that happens about once a month under the leadership of Williamson, Inc., our local Chamber of Commerce here in Williamson County. And we want to welcome a damp but surprisingly large live audience here at the beautiful Columbia State campus. I was expecting no one here because of Hurricane Helene passing through this morning, but we've got a great crowd here. I'm sure we've got a wonderful crowd on WCTV, Comcast Channel 3, YouTube, and various other ways to access that. And then WAKM AM 950, our radio audience. Welcome everyone. We also want to welcome our panelists this morning, one of whom we know very well, and then a couple that we don't know as well. But one which is on the way, but she got caught in apparently some unusual traffic because of the weather, so she'll be here momentarily. But I'll go ahead and introduce Matt. Matt Largen is the president and CEO of Williamson, Inc., our Chamber of Commerce here. And he's sitting in for Nathan Zipper, who was scheduled to be here, but he got a better offer out here. So, Matt has got deep experience in this economic development area and can fill that role very good. On the other end is Neil McDonald. Neil is with TVA, and he is the Middle Tennessee business development consultant. Is that correct for TVA? And in a minute, I'm going to ask him to tell us why TVA has a business development consultant and explain all that to us. But in the meantime, I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. I love to get on LinkedIn and find out about these folks. Where have they been? What have they done? But Neil's been with TVA for a little over 7 years in, I'm sure, various roles, but he was Director of Economic Development for the National Chamber of Commerce prior to that. So Neil probably knows a little bit about economic development. Prior to that, State of Tennessee, Public Information Officer for the Commissioner of the Department of Financial Institutions, Event Director for the Haslam inaugural inauguration organization, and then Director of Research for Bill Haslam for Governor, and then worked for the John McCain campaign prior to that. So you know all about politics too, which is probably still a big part of your job.
No politics to be talked about as a representative of TVA.
That's great. Matt has been, surprisingly, I can't believe it, but he's been president and CEO at the Williamson Chamber for right at 12 years. And I was involved in the merger of 3 chambers back just prior to that. And it's time flies when you're having fun. It doesn't seem like 12 years, Matt. Prior to that, he was the Williamson County Economic Development, Director. And then prior to that with the National Chamber for, looks like about 3 years. So, and prior to that with the Little Rock Chamber. So how did you get from Little Rock to Nashville?
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting story. I was at a conference in Little Rock and happened to meet Janet Miller there. She was one of the speakers, and she was head of economic development for the Nashville Chamber at the time. And we had a mutual friend, and Bob Fisher, who was the president of Belmont. And a few weeks later, she went to Bob and said, "What do you think about Matt as a working here? I have an opening." He said, "Yeah, that'd be great." And so next thing you know, I'm on a plane interviewing in Nashville for the job.
Cool. So originally from Arkansas.
Yeah, originally from Fort Smith on the Oklahoma border.
Okay. And Kaylee is walking in. You'll want to adjust that chair to suit your height, Kaylee. The gentleman might need to help you. You got it? There you go.
Yeah. That's okay. Weird.
And Neil, where are you originally from?
Originally from Knoxville, Tennessee, so
Okay.
East Tennessee as well. But it's funny. Matt talked about Janet Miller, great economic development champion of the region, and she also got me to the Nashville Chamber as well. So small world in economic development.
Great. Kaylee Harriman,
Morning.
good morning. You don't look worse for the dampness?
You know, that Nashville traffic got me on the way here.
Yeah, we're going to have a show next month about traffic mitigation in Franklin, so you might want to come back. But
I'll mark it down. I'll try not to be late next month.
Kaylee is the business development consultant representing Northern Middle Tennessee for the State Department of Economic Development. Been doing that now for a little over a year. Got an interesting resume, Kaylee. I told you I was going to look you up. Prior to that, with the Nashville Chamber for Director of Economic Development for a time. Prior to that, with the Industrial Board of Coffee County. Look like you might have some Coffee County roots. I don't know.
Yes, sir. I'm from Manchester, originally born and raised, whole family still there.
Okay. Prior to that, Tennessee Brokerage Agency. Prior to that, Internex.
Internex,
What is
electric
that?
power research and engineering firm.
Okay, so did you get to know Neil there?
Actually, no, didn't run into Neil until I moved back to Middle Tennessee.
And how did you end up at Maury's Piers and Beachfront Water Park in Wildwood, New Jersey?
Show's taking a left turn, I think.
When he said you have an interesting resume, I thought he looked all the way back to my internship in college. So while I was going to the University of Tennessee, go Vols, I decided that, you know what, I love Tennessee, but maybe I should go look and see what else is out there for me. And so I was looking for,
You picked New Jersey?
well, you know, I was looking for an out-of-state internship that provided housing and that was going to pay me. So I came across Maury's Piers, and actually I was not the only University of Tennessee student that was there that summer. So yeah, I lived on the Jersey Shore for 3 months.
About that. But, very, very interesting. Well, first of all, what I would like you all to do in whichever order you'd like to, I guess we'll let ladies go first. Kaylee, but describe your job and what you do on a daily basis, what you're trying to accomplish.
So my job looks different every day. But the purpose of my position, the regional teams at the state of Tennessee, so the state of Tennessee has 9 regions. Many departments across the state use the same 9 regions. I like to call our region Greater Nashville because what is Northern Middle, but Greater Nashville, more people seem to understand. So what we're doing in our regions is working to help existing businesses expand, thrive here, grow here, help our local partners like Matt and Williamson Inc. work with TVA. TVA is set up similarly and has regional people as well. In Greater Nashville, we do a little bit more of working with new companies as well, just because there are a lot of companies that are like, I want to be near Nashville. And so to them, that can mean any of our 13 counties that we cover.
Just thinking about being the business development consultant for Northern Middle Tennessee, which is pretty much the Greater Nashville area, that's either got to be the easiest job in economic development or the hardest. How would you?
I think a little bit of both. It's easy in that, you know, people come to us. It's difficult in that we stay extremely busy, and there's a little bit of pushback on whether what we're doing is best for the region.
Yeah,
So both.
we'll let Matt talk about that in just a minute. So,
Exactly.
Neil, same question. What do you do every day?
So Tennessee Valley Authority, TVA, as most of you know, I'm sure everyone in the room knows, we're the largest public utility in the country, and then we work with our 153 local power companies. So on the economic development team, we work to recruit investment and jobs along with our partners to the Tennessee Valley. So seven-state Tennessee Valley looks different in different parts. So downtown Franklin looks a little bit different from northern Mississippi. There's a lot of different strategies that we have where we're upfront, make sure that we are supporting the locals and the local economies to see what type of businesses and what type of attraction that they are trying to push. We are trying to help support that. So as Kaylee said, we have outbound recruitment teams that as the federal government is trying to recruit a lot of jobs and investment to the U.S., we are trying to land a lot of that into the Tennessee Valley region to make sure that we have a pretty good business case throughout the region with business cost or labor availability, et cetera, and then want to give the local teams the ability, once we help to kind of recruit that, to compete on the right types of jobs. So it's my job. Again, it looks a lot. There's 13 of us throughout the 7-state region, 13 of me regional consultants. I think my job is a little bit different in that you have strong teams like Williamson Inc. and the Nashville Chamber that are robust economic development teams. So finding ways that I can add value and be a partner to their teams is interesting. But works differently every day, but great opportunity, best job in the world, as you said, to sell Nashville. It's not the hardest sell in the world. So.
Right. Matt, let's introduce Nathan. He is their counterpart for Williamson County, as I understand it. Is that correct?
Yeah, Nathan serves as our Chief Economic Development Officer.
And he's been in that job now for just a year or so.
Well, he started in the position officially in January, but he's been with the organization 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. And prior to that with Vanderbilt and various other public efforts. Same question. What does he do every day? What have you instructed him to do for Williamson County?
And I'll say, he would have been here this morning. He was headed to Minneapolis, took an earlier flight out just so he wasn't delayed with the hurricane. So he I don't know if it's a better offer per se, but he did want to be here this morning. And before I start, let me talk about how important it is working with these two here on the stage and TVA and TNECD. They are incredible partners of ours, and this only works when we all work well together. And it's one of the things that's unique about us in Tennessee is that there truly is a partnership. And I'll say, Neil, I know you mentioned about TVA adding value. You have added a lot of value for us. In fact, our strategic plan, the foundation was laid by TVA at this point 12 years ago, and we built on top of it ever since then. And then you all do a great job with training as well. We just did a disc profile for our team around culture a few weeks ago, so you all bring a lot to the table, and you do too, Kaylee. We really love our partnership with you all. It's tremendous. So I think with Nathan's position and the work we do, it's really about one thing. It's about jobs. At the end of the day, that's how we're measured. And I'd say even greater than that, it's about careers and helping to create career opportunities for friends, families, and neighbors. That's the bottom line. And so while, yes, we know Nashville's popular, it's very different than it used to be, but we're still in competition for these really good careers. I mean, In-N-Out, it's a great example. We worked against Florida for that project. It was down. Governor DeSantis made 3 trips to California to try to lure that company there. Mitsubishi, it was us in Dallas and Atlanta. These are very competitive projects because they're really, really good jobs. And so we talk about how important it is that we create career opportunities for people that are here. Because when a company moves here, they come here to hire us. They want to access this talent because of our great schools. We can go into that later. But I really want to emphasize how important it is to create career opportunities for people right here who grew up here in our community, who also have the opportunity to move back. Don't have to go to Charlotte, Atlanta, or Dallas. They can come here and have a career. That's really important for us.
So you hear the phrase strategic growth a lot. What is strategic growth and how much growth is enough?
Yeah, and I would say again, it's back to opportunity, right? I don't necessarily look at it from that standpoint. I think the growth conversation is really about policy. What policies are set by the counties, by the cities? We come in after that and make sure that there are jobs here for people to access. So certainly, growth is intertwined in the conversation, but we look at it as a little different to make sure that as people move here, as people grow up here, there are opportunities for them to stay here.
Kaylee, same question. Nick mentioned that some of the companies that actually located in Williamson County have employees scattered across the state. Maybe Neil, you mentioned that. I can't remember. We had a kind of a intro call Tuesday to get to know each other a little bit. But tell us how you view strategic growth. How much growth do you want to see in Middle Tennessee?
I don't think it's a question of how much growth I want to see in Middle Tennessee. It's that I want to see that everyone in Middle Tennessee has access to a good quality job. We need people to do all kinds of jobs. But much like Matt said, we don't want people to feel like that they have to go to other states and other cities to get the kind of job that they want. So that means if we're doing our jobs correctly, we're recruiting all kinds of companies that, have what we would call a high quality job. A high quality job being a job that you can raise a family on in their backyard. So, as Matt also said, that's jobs for people that are moving here. Maybe they followed a company here, but that's also jobs for kids that are in Williamson County schools and other schools around the region right now. Even if they go off to college, we want them to come back home and be productive members of society here. And that means recruiting more companies that have more different types of jobs.
Neil, tell us what TVA's strategic goals are here, why it's in their interest for more jobs to come to Tennessee, and then we'll circle around and ask, how do you balance that with everybody's pressure to do away with coal plants?
Yeah, and I will add a quick story on this. So it's when I was at the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce, I had a councilwoman reach out when I first started and said that she wanted me to come meet with her to talk about how they can do a better job of recruiting certain industries. So I was very well prepared. It was one of my first months at the job. Came up with some maps, had all their industrial sites ready to go. I had all their labor statistics. I was ready to knock this presentation out of the park and sit down with her. And she says, so everywhere around us, I see Chick-fil-A's, but I can't go on right here. What are we going to do to get a Chick-fil-A here in our community? So I tell that story to say, I say that story to say that strategic growth, TVA, Williamson Inc., TNECD, we have target industries that we have identified. So those industries, why we have targeted those, they are high growth, high impact industries that we have targeted, that we have seen have high job multiplier effects.
Give us some examples.
Aerospace is one of them for the Tennessee Valley, clean energy, aerospace, advanced manufacturing, headquarters, and back office opportunities. So those, as I've kind of explained to the councilwoman, and if you can get some of these the reason why we are targeting some of these high growth industries is if you can land a headquarters or if you can land a large steel manufacturing plant, then those jobs can create, You look at the job multiplier effect, those are automotive's probably the best example. You get the tier 1 suppliers, tier 2 suppliers, the additional return on investment of those jobs continue to trickle down, and that's how you get the retail growth at the end. So having said that, kind of keep on, my counterpart in Mississippi is going to give me a hard time for bringing him up all the time, but I don't think Williamson Inc. is trying to recruit steel manufacturers in downtown Franklin. We're, again, trying
They're
to...
definitely not.
That's right.
To be clear.
So we are trying to recruit these industries to the Tennessee Valley again, and then once we're able to do that, letting the local communities figure out what they want to pitch on. So out of our target industries, Williamson County headquarters, high impact office jobs seem to be where we partner the most.
Let me kind of follow up on that too, Dave, if you don't mind. I think career ladders is a term we use all the time. I mean, because of the companies that have moved here, look, you could start as an intern at Mitsubishi, move up in accounting at Tractor Supply, become a vice president at a community health system, and retire as CEO at Nissan without ever leaving the county. There are not many places in America where that's the case. And my daughter's about to graduate this year from Centennial. We were touring Clemson a few weeks ago, and I was talking to the tour guide who said he was a computer science major from Greenville. And I said, that's great. What are you going to do after you graduate? He said, well, I tell you what I'm not going to do. I'm not going back to Greenville because there are no jobs there for what I want to do. Right? And I think that one story illustrates how important the work we do is to not focus on growth, but to focus on opportunity and make sure we're providing those for people who can come back here and have jobs and those people here that may be underemployed as well.
Add something too. I think maybe some people also don't realize we try really hard to create industry clusters. So if you recruit one type of company, that one company might have a few different types of jobs, but when an employee is looking at if they want to go to work for that company, they're also looking around to see, okay, if I'm going to move my family to Williamson County to work for this company, are there other companies in Williamson County that I could go work for if something happens to my job at the company that I'm moving for? Not that we ever expect that or think that that's going to happen, but I think it's in the back of a lot of people's head. I'm going to move to Williamson County to be, the CFO of the company at the headquarters. Well, in my mind at least, and not just in my mind, people tell us this. They're going, okay, is there another company that I could be the CFO of if something happens at this company? And in Williamson County, there is. But that's why we try to have industry clusters so that, if someone moves here for job A or someone that's from here wants to do job A, they could move to another company and still do job A.
Okay. Anybody want to mention some more success stories of, nope?
We can go. I don't know how much time you have. I mean, I think in the greater Nashville
Dave,
area, we have
do.
a lot of success stories that we could
Pick one.
tell. Well, I think it's interesting. TVA, when we come to the table, the first question people are asking, especially if it's a headquarters, is why is electric utility here? So why is Middle Tennessee Electric, again, our TVA works with our 153 local power companies. Middle Tennessee Electric and NES are with us at the table at the beginning of every project. But if it's an In-N-Out burger, a lot of people are questioning, hey, why is the electric utility here? And so we explained from the very beginning why TVA was created. Economic development first. In 1930s, when we were created, we built dams and brought electric electricity to the region as a way to facilitate.
Fertilizer plants for the farmers.
That's right. That's right. You know the history better than most, but so it's changed a lot. Now we're still, economic development is still at the core of TVA, energy, environment, and economic development. But now we are investing in companies that are investing. So it doesn't matter if you are a large data center taking that wants half as much power as the Middle Tennessee region, or if you're In-N-Out Burger that's creating, or True Green that is creating $150,000 average wage jobs that is giving people the opportunity to create better lives for their family. So it's a really unique opportunity, and I'd say in our region we see unique projects from the smallest power user to the largest. So it's an interesting opportunity.
You know what my favorite success story is? Do you know which county had the most project announcements last year? Williamson County. Do you know how many projects there were?
No.
9. And 7 of those 9 were expansions. That's my favorite success story. You know, we always say the new projects, the new companies that are coming in get all the press, they get all the headlines, and that's what everybody talks about. I mean, we're still talking about In-N-Out. But the expansions, I think, tell the real success story when we not only have companies relocating here, but we have companies that have either, you know, chosen to relocate here several years ago and now they're expanding, or they're a homegrown company that is expanding.
Right.
The fact that companies, you know, feel comfortable committing to more jobs and more capital investment here where they already are, that's the success story.
And that's the majority of our work locally. We spend a lot of times with our company's CEOs trying to get relationships, actually 2 or 3 deep in case they leave, with the local county leadership. Rogers, who's in the audience, has been on several of those meetings with CEOs, just basically saying, how can we help you continue to reinvest in our community? And it's no different if you're running a business, right? You know your best prospects are your existing clients. And it's the same thing with us. And you know that growth matters to your company, right? If more clients, it's the same thing with us, right? So I think if you think about the framework of this economic development operation of owning a small business, it all kind of tracks and makes sense.
Great. Let's talk about schools for a minute. Schools, from what I hear, in my business, I sometimes read transcripts of the quarterly conference calls for public companies. And if you read the quarterly conference calls of the public home building companies, the big national home building companies, one of the first things they look at before they invest in a community is how good are the schools. How big a part does that play? Start with Kaylee and Neil, and then I hate that Nathan isn't here because he lit up when I suggested that we probably needed to talk about that, but I'm sure Matt can address that too.
Schools are hugely important, specifically public schools. I mean, by far and away, you know, the public schools are the ones that are partnering with your local industries to make sure that the students are learning the skills that they need to be successful later in life. Everything from, you know, elementary school career day to high school career pathways and job shadowing and all of the things that we know are important for students to be exposed to as they're going through K through 12. You know, that's the bread and butter. I told when we were preparing for this panel a few days ago, I told the guys here a story. I had breakfast with someone on Monday morning who moved here from Chicago 3 years ago. At the time, she had a 5-year-old. Now that child is 8. And she said, we made the best decision we possibly could have made, not only to move to Tennessee from downtown Chicago, but also to pick Williamson County schools. She's been very impressed with the Williamson County school system. And I will also say I hear from companies, you know, regularly, how are the schools? they want to know for their own kids, they want to know for their employees' children, and they want to know for their future workforce. Companies know that that's where their future workforce is coming from.
Neil?
Yeah, so I'll say economic development has changed quite a bit since I started. So coming out of the recession, 2008, economic development, it was all about incentives. Companies, I mean, every unemployment rate throughout the country was high as could be. Incentives were how many incentives can you get? Sending cash straight to companies and probably was not the best business practice. As it transitioned, it became sites. Where can you find large land sites to build a building? And people wanted to make quick business decisions. How quickly can you get somebody in business? Today, it's all about workforce. Workforce is the number one thing that we hear. Labor, labor, labor. What is your talent availability? And that is why Nashville and Williamson County have been so competitive. I think incentives are talked about at the very end. Companies want to go somewhere where they're welcomed, where they can are seen as a partner. But the number one thing before companies even come to us, site selection consultants have given them a spreadsheet that shows where people are moving, where there's high skilled labor workforce, and where they can get that. So a lot of the companies that are moving here, they will bring a small percent. Usually we're seeing about 20% to 10 to 20% of their workforce typically on average that they will relocate from where they're coming from. The main question they want to see is where is their existing workforce and what is the talent pipeline for the future, not only for the short term to get them off the ground, but what is the talent pipeline to be able to continue those skills? So I know Governor Lee is really focused on trades and making that pipeline continue. TVA is, we have different workforce and labor assistance that we can provide, but that's not primarily where we try to stand. But from an economic development standpoint, in 2024, labor is and skilled workforce is the number one most important.
And schools are important to that.
Absolutely, creating that pipeline of educated workforce is key to that.
Matt?
Yes, schools are important. No doubt about it. I'll tell a story. I was at a Nashville business breakfast at Lipscomb a few weeks ago featuring the CEO of Bridgestone. And he was talking about all the career moves that he had made over his career, last 15, 20 years, made 7 or 8 moves. He said, moving to Nashville was the first time I ever took my kids from private school to public school. And that public school is Williamson County. I mean, that's the company's based in downtown Nashville, lives in Brentwood, put his kids in Jordan Elementary, all the way through Ravenwood, said it could not have had a better experience. And I think that story...
This guy's from Italy, I think, isn't
Yeah,
he?
that's right. That's right. And I think that story illustrates not only are Williamson County schools important for Williamson County, they're important for the entire region and really the entire state. So I think that one story really illustrates how important our schools are to the fabric of this community and to the foundation of this economy, without question. And one of the things I'm really proud of, we could talk for literally hours about this, is the fact that I've never heard another Chamber of Commerce, except for ours, actually have people from the school systems in our staff meetings on Monday mornings. Someone from Franklin Special, Williamson County Schools have been doing it for 12 years since we started to help create relevant opportunities for students with our companies based right here in Williamson County.
How does Columbia State enter into that?
Critical. I mean, Columbia State is, and I actually talked to Jeremy at the EIC last week and said, hey, who are your best partners? And he said, Columbia State by far is our best partner, the Entrepreneur and Innovation Center for Williamson County Schools. Columbia State is a tremendous partner with the schools, also with our companies as well, setting up programs specifically to meet the needs of our companies like with Tractor Supply Company. So Columbia State has been a tremendous workforce development partner for Williamson, Inc.
Also, shout out to the EIC last week. Williamson County hosted
What
some
is the EIC?
The Entrepreneur and Innovation Center, the Williamson County Schools Entrepreneur and Innovation Center. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. I was going to say, I'm going to pass it over to Matt because I just know it's EIC. But last week, Williamson Inc. hosted a half day with some site selection consultants, and students from the EIC got to do a pitch competition in front of the consultants, and they did an amazing job. Not only did they have great business ideas, I mean, not just ideas, these are businesses that they're running, but they also were great public speakers. I mean, stood up in front of a room full of people and just did an amazing job. And I know that's a product of Williamson County Schools. So bravo.
I'm going to put in a plug for Williamson County Schools and specifically Columbia State, because my kids were all Williamson County School products, and the opportunities at Centennial High School are unbelievable. And as they connect with Columbia State, Jack, the middle child, was the overachiever and ended up between dual enrollment and what are the AP courses? Thank you. I hadn't had to use that word in a while. He had 55 credit hours of college credit when he graduated high school, and Auburn accepted 53 of them, which is even more surprising. So it's literally, we've got great schools. I'll let Rogers talk a little bit about the criticism that our school board gets occasionally, but and why they might not deserve as much of the criticism as they get. But spend a little bit of time on grants. Been in the paper a little bit lately because some of the grants didn't turn out so great. I didn't tell you I was going to talk about that, did I? But I think some of them have gone bad. Some more of them are expected to go bad. But Neil mentioned that you're changing some of the structure of the incentives and so forth. How good does that work? Just giving them money, or how does that work? Who wants to take that one?
I'll kind of just repeat what I kind of said earlier, and that how much of the focus of incentives play in economic development projects today is much less than it was before. And I think so of our focus on incentives has lowered with that. So again, I think there are bigger labor, energy availability for TVAs, especially, is a bigger question than incentives. And I think it comes back at the very end. I think it's an important part to play in that it shows that communities are interested in a project. But if we see that communities or companies are asking about incentives at the beginning of a project, we're usually not interested in those projects. So we know that they're not asking the right things to be successful and create successful opportunities for the region. So,
Matt?
Yeah, I'll jump into this. I think it's important, just a couple things. When it comes to incentives that Williamson County offers, we've done, and Nathan knows the exact number, but just a handful of deals in the last really 15 years. It's really important to know, sometimes this gets lost in the headlines, but for Williamson County, we never touch money that's obligated to the schools, which is about 60% of every tax but maybe even closer to 70%. That's a big, big deal. And I remember our county mayor saying very specifically to Nissan, how important are public schools to you? Very important, great. You understand that we won't give up that money for our schools. And so that, I don't know how many counties in Tennessee do it that way. I think we're one of a handful, but it's very clear that that's money we won't touch because this is important to your company and the future workforce as well. So that's one. I'll say two, when you think about deals gone bad, again, I think this is headlines versus reality. A lot of that, the big number you see is potential money based on performance indicators. If you create X many jobs, this is the number you get. If you don't, you get nothing. And that, I think, is lost a lot of times and sits back in. So you're always, again, these are competitive situations. You're competing against cities across the country. You want to make sure you've got a good proposal in front of them, which do include incentives. But if that company doesn't meet targets, they don't get a dime. And I think that's lost a lot in the follow-up.
Right.
Yeah, I'll just add, so I think as a state, Tennessee does a pretty good job of trying to mitigate the risks. You can't always mitigate all of the risks because, unfortunately, I don't think any of us have a crystal ball. If you do, talk to me afterwards. I could use the lottery numbers. But, first of all, we require companies to show 90% of proof of financing. So if they tell us that they're going to invest $100 million, we require either the company to be publicly traded so we can see their financials, or we require a letter from a financial institution that says the company has X number of dollars on deposit and or X number of dollars available in a line of credit. So that's the first line of protection from the state perspective. The second line of protection is, as Matt said, a lot of our grants are pay for performance. They only get the funds if they create, and right now, currently, they have to create the jobs, and the job has to be filled for 6 months to get paid out. And then, we also, for the majority of our grants, have accountability agreements. So if the company isn't, after the 5 years that we look at, or after, the time period that we're looking at, if they haven't done what they said they're going to do, they're either going to owe us a portion of the money back, or they're going to owe us all of the money back. And we're very, we follow up on that. And I think that's sometimes those are the headlines that you're seeing is, we're doing our fiduciary duty, and we're going back to those companies who didn't do what they said that they're going to do, and we're getting the money back. So I think ultimately, we never want a company to fail. But, if you are seeing those headlines, it's because we did what we're supposed to do.
Governor has made it clear that one of his priorities is to help the rural and distressed counties. Doesn't really address Williamson County at all, but I'm curious how that's going. I happened to go to a wedding up on the Dale Hollow Lake Shores back in the spring or summer sometime, and happened to drive through Jamestown, and it's sad what some of these small towns are looking like, and just wondering how that effort's going.
So I truly believe, and the governor and Commissioner McWhorter believe this too, that Tennessee's at its best when all 95 counties have the best chance for success. So, I unfortunately can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but when, Governor Lee came into office, we had double-digit number of distressed counties. That basically means, the population is declining, wages are low, the community is depressed. We don't want to see that for any of our 95 counties. So there has been a focus on what can we do to give those counties a little bit more of a step up. So we have multipliers on our incentives for those counties that are considered distressed. There are grants that the match is lower if the county is considered distressed. But we also know that the surrounding counties can also help lift up those distressed counties, because I think everyone here knows not everyone that lives in the county works in the county. So it's also important for the counties around the distressed counties to be strong and have opportunities, because the people that live in the distressed counties can go to the county next door or even a few counties over and work good, high-paying jobs and go back to their local community and spend money there. And we know that a manufacturing facility or an office facility is not going to be the right fit for every single community, but would tourism be a good fit there? We just try to do our best to support all of our counties in the ways that they need best. But I wouldn't say that I think Williamson is important to the distressed counties, because, some of those distressed county people have jobs that are directly tied to Williamson County.
Yeah, Kelly's right. We did some analysis a couple years ago for our Day on the Hill event, which is important for legislators to know across the state. Every single county in Tennessee can trace at least one job in their county back to a Williamson County employer, which is remarkable. So, and in some cases, a lot of those employees, especially in some of the bigger counties in Tennessee. So yeah, Williamson County's economy is important, not just to the residents here or Middle Tennessee, but really across the state. And I'd say exactly what Kaylee said. Governor Lee and Commissioner Ward this is something they genuinely, deeply care about. And I think as economic development professionals, this is why we do the work we do. It's not about numbers on a spreadsheet. These are about impacting people's lives. And I've heard Governor Lee talk so eloquently about what a job means to a family in a distressed county or frankly anywhere in Tennessee. I mean, this is about putting food on the table, sending their kids to college, creating generational wealth. I mean, that's why we do the work we do. Economic developers really care about people in their community because they know how important a job is to the livelihoods of that family.
And lastly, I'll just say, so every community is not as fortunate as Williamson County, and so TVA to the distressed rural communities, we have two parts where we're helping to recruit businesses directly here, but then we're also helping communities to be able to be prepared so they can help to recruit those communities. So we do have we have greater assistance and lower matching funds. We want communities to have a foot in the door. Money at the table, and we have lower matching funds for those distressed counties.
One more subject, and then I'm going to walk around the room a little bit, but you wouldn't know it today, but a couple of weeks ago we had a water emergency in Franklin, lack of water. Today it's probably the opposite. But there's a lot of talk about the Duck River being overtaxed. It's always had plenty of water, and it looked like to me when I go by it, which I go by quite often, but with the growth in Spring Hill, Columbia, and in Franklin, how are we looking at that? Is that a long-term problem?
So I'll start, and I think there is a misconception of it's not always necessarily how much water is available to pull from the river, it's how much water can be discharged back into it. So, depending on where you are along the river, you have different limits. And I know some of you may be sitting here thinking, well, what does it matter how much water we discharge back into the river? Well, the Duck River especially is the most biodiverse river in North America. And you can't just put as much water as you want back into it. That messes up the biome of the river.
Might kill a snail darter, but
you might. You might. So
A little more complicated than that.
just had to throw that in.
Yeah. So, I do think infrastructure of all kinds, that's what keeps me up at night. All of the infrastructure, not just water, but roads, sewer, sorry, Neil, electricity, natural gas, all of them. I think we, for a long time, didn't think about it enough. But now we are trying to think about it some more.
So yeah, I think you were very kind to say water, but yes, I will say utilities and infrastructure as a general TVA, that is the challenge that we see post-pandemic and growing 3 times faster than the national average from a population standpoint. TVA is being asked to do 2 things. So I think a couple years ago, since the pandemic, when we saw, the world was not going to end and the complete opposite happened, everybody in the country decided they wanted to move to Nashville and Middle Tennessee. Things have changed. And so the question was asked, are we going to put up, and the question that you're being asked today, are we putting up the closed sign that we're not open for business anymore, or what's our role moving forward. So what TVA, the board, our elected officials who appoint the board have heard is we are open for business, and so we need to invest in infrastructure to be able to recruit the types of jobs that we need moving forward. So in order to do that, we're being asked to do two things: lower our carbon footprint to create a new, cleaner grid, the grid of tomorrow, and in order to do that, decrease the higher carbon emitting generation types, and then also increase our generation capacity. So TVA, we've come out saying we're investing $16 billion over the next 10 years to be able to do that. We're dedicated to that funding. It's not just in northern Mississippi that we're going to be investing in. We're going to be investing in Nashville and the whole region. So again, we're going to be from an economic development standpoint, we're going to be recruiting jobs and investment to the valley, and we're going to leave it up to the locals on. We're going to do our job to be able to have the infrastructure for you all to be able to compete and let you all choose what types of jobs and investment you want.
Williamson County Mayor Rogers Anderson in the audience today. Rogers, tell us a little bit about your perspective on all this, particularly with the schools and the criticism of the school board.
Well, first of all, thank you, and great discussion this morning. I think when you look at Williamson County Public Schools and the Franklin Special School District, many years ago, 25 plus years ago, we treated our public school systems as an infrastructure, just like you do water and sewer and roads. It was a high priority of the men and women, and has been a high priority of the men and women. And Matt has, through his team and through the others where they have involvement, has continued that, pushed for that, and then the parents today demand that. So I don't see any change in that in Williamson County system. When you look at some of the other areas that they've been talking about, distressed counties, I think all of us as human beings want to help our neighbor. We're doing it this morning. We have two teams that we sent down to Florida to help with the hurricane, swift water and telecommunications, and we'll have two more probably going out later this day to the Atlanta area to help our neighbors. But you have to be real mindful, Dave. You're a businessman. At one time I was a businessman. That when you look at Williamson County, we're the only county out of 95 that's made the attainment, the word attainment. And that's a very strong word that economic across the state have said Williamson County hits all the benchmarks. So we will not be supplementing them as much as we would some of our other counties. And it's important to realize I want to help the surrounding counties because that workforce does get there. At the same time, we have to be mindful that on the minus side of that ledger, when things like schools, we don't receive as much financial incentives. We don't receive as much in economics. So these people in our room here, these businessmen, these taxpayers have to pick up that slack in order for us to keep going. And so no one likes to use the word entitlement, but Williamson County does push that envelope. I'm proud to stand here and say I'm glad our men and women, all 6 of our cities, have bought into this philosophy. But I do believe when you look at everything around us, that next move that needs to be pushed is more in the area of transportation. One of your panelists today couldn't get here, and the other one struggled getting here. And it's time to treat our transportation system, I-65, all the state routes, as a true economic development, because businesses do look at how long it takes them to get to work and how long it takes them to get back from work and their employees. And all of that goes into this world we live in, having the right formula for the right sauce for the right output.
Thank you, Rogers. I'll amen the transportation comments. Got a question up here, got time for another one or two. Stand up and introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi, Rebecca Melton, Executive Director of the Spring Hill Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for all that you do. I'm so glad we had an opportunity to hear more about what you do because a lot of people don't understand the important work that you do, and I appreciate it so much. Nashville Area Chamber has been doing a really interesting initiative about upskilling local employees so that they can tackle the affordable living crisis. Has that been on anyone's radar at the Williamson County level with an uptick in the real estate?
Yeah, sure. I mean, upskilling for sure. I mean, that goes back to our partnership with the schools, with the Entrepreneur Center. The cool thing about the EIC that Kaylee mentioned earlier is it's that single path to engagement for businesses. So if your business is interested in being a mentor or being a coach, there's opportunities there. So yes, upskilling, I think making sure people have the skills for the jobs necessary for the future is an incredibly important thing. So yeah, and that happens here at Columbia State too, right? I mean, we're all focused on making sure we are training and giving people skills for the jobs that are still going to be around the next 10 to 20 years. And I know the state and TVA does the same thing across the state too.
Didn't see you. Ann Peterson, Alderman, City of Franklin, will be next here.
Just wanted to say that I got something about 15 minutes ago saying for the first time since August the 9th, we were able to pump water out of the Harpeth.
I suspected that was the problem, because living on the banks of the Harpeth, I knew there wasn't much water in it. So I've had to move my cows up away from it this morning to make sure they didn't swim off into another subdivision like they did the last time we had a flood. I've got one other subject, and got time for it, looks like, that I was keeping in my back pocket just in case we had time for it. But Confederate monuments, Civil War sites, we got a lot of them. And, is it politically correct for us to, how does anybody ever say anything about that, positive or negatively, when they're looking at Williamson County as a destination?
It's the balance of preserving history. I mean, this is a history that happened. I think the best example of what happened in Williamson County and Franklin is the Fuller story. Being able to tell that perspective, or what happened in the Civil War, from a different perspective. We know that Civil War tourism is incredibly important to Franklin, to Williamson County, throughout Tennessee. I mean, these battles happen right here in our backyard. It's important to honor that and honor the soldiers that died. But I do think telling that story and that experience from different perspectives of enslaved people, of colored troops, which is what the statue is on the square, is incredibly important. It was a way to do this where you're not necessarily tearing a monument down, but you're just telling a more fuller, complete story of all the different experiences happen. And I think that was really designed as, this is a way that you can do that as a southern city without having to necessarily tear your monuments down. And there was a great New York Times piece on it that generated a lot of press, again, setting that example and being that beacon to other communities that this is a different and I think a better way to go about it.
Good deal. We're about out of time. I'm going to thank a lot of people that it takes to make this happen. You wouldn't believe all the coordination that goes on behind the scenes. Matt and his staff, Kel McDowell's the quarterback on this, and makes it all come together. But Kel, we appreciate all you do on this. Of course, Nancy Conway, I hear from on a regular basis and let me know what's going on. But and then Jenna Potter is also back in the office helping with the graphics and so forth. But just thank you all particularly for taking the time to be here and sharing all this information with us. Creed Henderson and the WCTV team make us look good every month. We appreciate your staff, Creed. Tom Lawrence and the AM 950 team, and Derby Jones and the crew at Williamson Herald, one of our media partners. He was here. I think he right in front of me here. We appreciate your help, Derby. And then we got some financial assistance helping out from Vanderbilt University through the efforts of Lynn Maddox and Christine Bradley. AT&T, do we have a new contact at AT&T? We'll introduce them at some point here soon. We get the McDonald's coffee from the Lion Leadership Group. So we have free coffee for everyone that wants to get here a little early each time. And just want to mention again, the next show is October the 18th, I believe it is. And I had 25th written down. I knew that wasn't right. But I got moved up a week. And we're going to have the City of Franklin staff, Eric Stuckey and his traffic engineers and part of the engineering staff, talking about transportation initiatives and traffic mitigation efforts to help us get around town and around the county better. So looking forward to that one. Hope you'll be back, and we'll go from there. Thanks for coming.